Hello and welcome to this edition of Africa Dialogues, brought to you by Philips. I'm Wale Famura, reaching you from Lagos, Nigeria. Counterfeit products present a global problem with significant economic and social costs. The International Chamber of Commerce estimates that international trade in counterfeit products could top $900 billion this year. It's also a major problem in Africa, as the continent has been targeted as a dumping ground by counterfeiters. Before we get into a discussion about the counterfeit products challenge in West Africa, the next report highlights the challenge in Nigeria. A big part of the e-business revolution underway in Nigeria is online retail. Entrepreneurs are taking retail to the web, bringing a variety of products to consumers across Nigeria.
I think that there's a real retail revolution going on in Nigeria. So if you look at, prior to 2010, there wasn't much, e-commerce activity. But in the space of about 4 or 5 years, there has been tremendous uptick in terms of, the orders being driven online across various spheres. So that's, core general merchandise, so fridges, white goods, electronics, or fashion, or like what we are doing at supermarket, groceries. I think that has grown tremendously in the last 4 years, and there's still a huge potential for that to go in the next, 5 to 10 years.
One challenge facing retailers is the proliferation of counterfeit products.
Counterfeit is as pervasive as you have originals. So it's just, once you have originals, you have a counterfeit. For every product in every field, in every area, be it drugs, be it car parts, be it anything, once it's a replication of the original, it's not limited to any space.
This is the Balogun Market, located just next to the busy Marina Financial District in Lagos. It's one place where you can get everything from electronics to clothing items, from phones to accessories. But it's also one of several local markets across the country where counterfeit products are thought to be sold in huge volumes. I went through the market to get a sense of what was on offer. In some cases, counterfeit products were quite easy to spot. However, to get my hands on some items, I had to engage some sellers. When I asked for one top brand, this merchant asked me if I wanted the fake or the original. I asked him to bring the original, but perhaps scared by our camera, he failed to return with the item. Counterfeit products represent a $1 billion global industry, and tackling the problem is now demanding the cooperation of countries across the continent.
The dimensions are multilateral, and there's a concerted global coalition against it. It has now there's even plans to make it trans-border, so that a court in Nigeria can even deal with an issue that arose maybe in Republic of Benin. It's no more territorial. So there's a coalition against it. World Custom, there's a fight against it.
The cost of counterfeit products is significant. The government loses billions in taxes. Companies lose market share to counterfeiters. And while the purchase of counterfeit clothing may be less harmful, the use of other fake products are life-threatening.
What about buying a counterfeit drug? What about getting a counterfeit part for your car? It just happened to me a few days ago. One of my cars, I got a part for it and the engineer fixed it, only to turn out that it was counterfeit. And the thing about counterfeit is that you may not even know that you are dealing with a counterfeit product. Now, some counterfeiters are so good that it will even challenge the original product.
Now, joining me to discuss the counterfeit product challenge is a panel comprising players in Nigeria's private sector as well as regulators. Oluremi Ayeni is a director at the Standard Organization of Nigeria. Mena Ajakpovi is a lawyer and partner at Abraham & Co. Muda Yusuf is the Director General of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and Chioma Iwuchukwunweke is a General Manager, Personal Health at Philips West Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us for this really, really important conversation. I want to start first of all by hearing from you, Muda. Your thoughts, first of all, on the economic impact of this challenge. We've rolled out a few numbers. Multi-billion dollars are spent every year trading counterfeit products. But what has been the impact locally in Nigeria, especially from the private sector perspective?
Well, the impact has been very profound. There has been impacts in the area of loss of revenue to governments, to companies, There have been impact in the area of even the capacity of those who are in the manufacturing sector. Many of them have actually been forced to close down as a result of the impact of these counterfeiters. There are also issues about safety, which also has implications, which also has economic costs.
Right.
Safety to lives with regard to things like fake pharmaceutical or counterfeit pharmaceutical products, wires and cables. I mean, we have a lot of issues with that. We have a lot of issues with the auto spare parts, electronics, computer accessories, cosmetics, wire and cables, and so on and so forth. So the impact is very profound, you know, because quite a lot of businesses are having a lot of challenges.
Right.
Haven't invested so much in building a brand, you know, and some character just come to leverage that and begin to do business.
Right.
So it's a form of economic crime, really.
Absolutely.
And it should be so treated.
And we will certainly get into that conversation later on. But Chioma, maybe you want to add a thing or two about the impact that you're seeing, especially for businesses. I mean, Philips is a major brand. You're doing business in Nigeria. Your thoughts about the economic impact of this problem?
Well, as a Nigerian, from that perspective, oftentimes we ask for foreign direct investments, which will help the economy, of course. And so a lot of multinationals would obviously want to invest in our country. Now, but the problem is they're not able to really measure and determine the kind of revenues that could be generated in our country, because a big chunk of that revenue is going, you know, somewhere else, to the fake and counterfeit products. So what it means is the actual potential is not recognized. And that will determine the amount that could be invested in our country. So we are losing quite a lot.
Right. Mena, I want to hear from you as well, because I know you represent quite a few companies that have tried to deal with this problem. From where you sit, your thoughts about the cost. What are we losing because of this battle against counterfeit products?
Now, in terms of the number, there's no consensus as to how much it is. The statistics changes. You've mentioned $1 billion. I was reading the ICC report, the International Chamber of Commerce report on it. They estimate that it's going to be 1.7 trillion in terms of global trade on counterfeit. Now, imagine what 1.7 trillion is in the global economy. So the scale is large. Now, and also look at the security implication. Now, I'm going to look at it from a different sphere. Apart from the fact that revenue is removed from the government, creativity is also discouraged because the foundation of counterfeit is intellectual property. When you take somebody else's intellectual property and you use it for less than what is invested in it by the actual owner, so why should I focus on building something when I can get it for free, when I can just copy and make use of it? So it affects the creativity, it affects the government. Taxes are not paid. Those people, they don't pay taxes. They just copy and they just go for the free ride. So the effect on the global economy is so wide. That is why under WTO, the World Trade Organization, and the subsequent agreement under TRIPS, it imposes an obligation on signatory states to criminalize it and to ensure that stiff punishment is attached to it, and also to encourage people, also to encourage nations to treat it as a transnational and transborder crime. We'll all sit here and talk from now to doomsday how it affects everything. But it's a given, the foundation should be taken that it affects everything in our socio-economic life, from drugs to electrical appliances, to the pacemaker in your heart, to the drinks, to everything. So it's the given. Let's start from there.
So extremely pervasive, no question about it, and the economic impact is very clear. But Oluremi, I want to get your thoughts, because you represent the Standard Organization of Nigeria here. So you're part of the people who should hopefully begin to tackle these issues. And as we look back, because we know that quite a few initiatives have been put out there to try and tackle this problem, your assessment of the progress made so far?
Yes, thank you. With the topic at hand, there's a global perspective to it in the first instance, and we need to recognize the fact that counterfeiting is a major global menace. Nigeria happens to be one of the destination countries for these products, not the only one. Now, what makes our own challenge a bit cumbersome is the level of industrial activities at the moment. And if you talk about electronics, for example, that sector of manufacturing is still pretty low here.
Sure. And
that's to assume that the imports is where we have the original being imitated, right? Beyond the economic cost to government, to businesses, you're talking of products that will not deliver value to the end user. You're also talking of the likely environmental impact, because the life cycle of such products would typically be lower than expected. So you're talking of dump sites being filled up unduly. These are issues that are of such magnitude that we do not also want to downplay the fact that it's a major challenge. However, if you look at the mandate of SON for ensuring quality of products in the market and things like that, yes, you will be talking of almost countless number of brands in the market. The clip we saw spoke about electronics, clothing, and the rest. So in attacking this issue, what SON does readily is to work with brand owners. Nobody can know your backyard more than you, if we're going to put it at that. So if I'm trading in electric iron, for example, we assume that the brand owner is on top of the game. And in every instance where such issues are brought to the notice of Standards Organization of Nigeria, we rise to the challenge. The major role we have is to apprehend where we can the source of these so-called fake products, and then work with the brand owner to take whatever legal steps he would want to do to protect his brand.
Right.
Where the product is manufactured in the country, we assume that the product should be certified. That makes us also interested party, because if you're trying to pass off a product that has not gone through the certification process, you want the average consumer to believe that, oh, SON has seen this and it's certified. That puts us as a joint interested party in such an instance. So that's the dimension. And continually we're working with other agencies of government, with the Copyright Commission, with the Trademark Registry, and the likes,
So definitely several agencies need to be involved here. Yes. But because your body is really responsible for setting standards, and I believe that if we can get standards right, to some extent we can tackle this problem. I want to hear about maybe the progress we have made so far. Maybe you can just enlighten us on to what extent we've tackled these issues under the Standard Organization of Nigeria.
I would make a few examples. In terms of cables, for example, I'm sure sometime in the past we've heard of imports that were carrying brand names that are local, that are indigenous to us here. When such was cited, of course, the first thing is to call the brand owner to ask, when did you start importing this product? And that throws so many things into the public domain, and they've had to take it on from there. Concerning imports now, we've had things like shaving sticks that would so imitate the original that the brand owner has to be on top of his game, as I mentioned earlier. We've worked with shaving stick importers, we've worked with auto parts importers, and the amazing thing is the fact that in a particular company, a fairly big one, the managers, in the course of discussing with our team, actually had to argue between them. Some could not distinguish the fake of one of their brands from the original, because it's like you need to be a step ahead of the game of the counterfeiters, and it is indeed a big challenge, but it's not something that we cannot collectively confront.
I think Chairman, she makes an interesting point about how good the counterfeiters are. It seems to be so close to the original these days. Can you just give us some perspective on your experience at Philips?
Yeah. Currently, we just launched a Buy Original campaign. We do understand the problems, with the counterfeit products. I mean, you have different grades of counterfeit products. I mean, you have Philips products that are spelled with a double L,
right.
but Philips is a single L. You have the ones that are not even spelled as a PH. Then you have others that are very, very closely linked. And this is why we launched this Buy Original campaign, because at the end of the day, I mean, we're all, talking, about different aspects of it. But the most important is actually the consumer. How are we going to protect the consumer? Because right now, it's getting increasingly difficult to differentiate between the original, and the fake. And what we have actually done, for example, for our appliances, all the products, that are original Philips, I mean, first of all, they're under warranty. I mean, that is something that the consumers must know. But all the products that are original Philips has a security holographic sticker on it.
Right.
And these stickers, they're very few, because of the security nature, there are very few companies that actually produce and manufacture these stickers. And then for the lighting products, like the Philips bulbs, you have like a short SMS code that you can call in. Now, this is so important because I know there has been a lot of focus on drugs, and NAFDAC had done quite a lot of work on drugs. But I can tell you as well, buying a fake appliance is also very, very life-threatening. I mean, if you buy a fake appliance, a fake Philips ion that, could just blow up, it could cause fire. Right. So these are things that we really need to focus on. That's why for Philips, we are very much concerned about the consumers, and we want to make sure that the consumers are aware of what is fake and what is original.
Right. So you've had to invest a little bit in trying to distinguish your products. But let me hear from you.
This is what bothers me. As a business person, as an investor, the fact that you need to begin to worry about campaign on counterfeit, enlightenment, monitoring is a major distraction.
And I imagine a cost as well.
To investors. So it's a governance issue.
Yeah,
we need to strengthen our institutions. Yeah. It is not the business of an investor to be. I mean, you need to see how much some of these companies spend to be able to enlighten the public, to be able to fight. Ideally, I mean, they are paying tax.
Yeah.
And when you pay tax, you expect the government to use the tax to strengthen the institutions.
Let's hear from one of the authorities here.
I would want to differ from your perspective. Yeah. I mentioned the fact that there are countless products in the market. Yeah. Now, the competition policy and all those things are coming up, the IPR protection policy, collaborations with various other under bilateral relationship, various collaborations are going on. It's a global menace. That's number one. But the fact that I am a brand owner puts the responsibility on me. And I will tell you one thing, because I want to respond to what Chioma said earlier. You as a brand owner, you've taken some steps. These same steps you have taken are part of the issues we have had to explain over the years to major brand owners. There's no way I would know your product more than you. And for any particular authority to begin to to follow up on numerous products, when issue comes from the consumer or from the brand owner that, look, we can feel that this brand of our products are not distributed. I will even use paints, for example. There's an ongoing activity on paints, and it got to a stage we said, look, let's do a market survey on products. I mentioned it that, look, you cannot get that brand in the open market. And my colleagues were saying, what? That's brand, you do market segmentation, you distinguish your products. So for holographic counterfeiting protection, these are things that brand owners will need to do. Stakeholder engagement from time to time, educating the consumer in a way that will not be detrimental to the original brand. Right. But above all, we expect that even channel of distribution should be audited periodically. Right. Okay. How much did I import? How much did I distribute? Why are there so many of my products all over the places that are not likely to be from my source?
If I can respond to that, I do understand what you're saying. Yes, we do have a lot of, responsibility, but it doesn't take away the responsibility that the regulatory bodies have. Now, we talk about it being a global phenomenon. I'm more interested in my country. Yeah. I'm more interested in Nigeria, in the West African countries, because this is where the dumping ground is. Okay. Yes, it is a global phenomenon in other countries, but it's not so open.
Right.
And why is it not open? Yes. Because of the regulatory bodies, because of the punitive measures. It's so easy to sell a fake product without having any repercussions on it. And this is where the regulatory bodies
I would really like
in.
to hear you talk about this. What I hear is that it sounds, she made a point about Nigeria being a dumping ground. So it does sound like the bigger part of the problem is the import. So maybe you can talk about your perspective on that.
Okay. Now, I will take it from a global scale. Counterfeit, we all know, is a global thing. And the lure, the invitation for counterfeiters lies in the consumers.
Right.
They are attracted to the pricing. They always gravitate to something that is cheap.
Sure.
It's a global survey conducted, and that's the conclusion. Now, so once there's an attraction because of low prices, they don't care about the standard. Can it do the work? Can it do it work, even if for a bit? Now, it now depends on what area of goods. For a shirt, for instance, why won't I buy a counterfeit? Not me. Why won't I buy a counterfeit if I wear it and it looks good and it has the brand and it's cheaper? I'll pass off with it. So it all, intellectual property rights and the pricing is the lure. Even in Mexico, we have the same regime. The attraction is the pricing. So it comes with orientation.
I guess the question is who needs to drive that orientation.
Yes,
to some extent, I imagine that it must be the
brand owners. The brand owner is the responsibility. We are talking about intellectual property right here. Intellectual property right is in the realm of private property. Is recognized as a private property under our laws. Therefore, it is your responsibility to define and defend your space. And whatever steps you take to define and defend your space, just like Philips has taken, it's very, very proactive. Now, it had to do that, take that step to define and defend its space, to prevent other people from, there's a common saying in IP law, if you sleep on your right, nobody will enforce it. Right. The government is saddled with so many problems, and that is why this... It is your responsibility. Basically, the government provides a general framework. That is why, and general framework, that's why you have customs, that's why you have SON, that's why you have NCC, that's why you have all those regulatory bodies and the laws. That is a general framework.
You mentioned
but the responsibility to actually situate the problem and deal with it and utilize the infrastructure it's your responsibility.
Okay.
But you mentioned
I know Muda wants to make a point. You can just make a quick point, very quick point if you can.
You see, we should not create conditions that will allow government to abdicate its responsibility to investors. It's very key. Counterfeiting is an act of criminality.
Right.
And it should be so treated.
It's criminalized.
Now, well, the fact that it's global and all of that is not an excuse for us to tolerate the kind of impunity that we have in this country.
But I need to...
Would you rather have us
the brand owners
that
I know
going to be in every market
can share information.
Okay, we'll probably
give intelligence and all of that.
If I can, we'll get back to specifically what you would like the authorities to do.
Exactly.
But I want to move close very quickly to an issue before we go on a break here about the point about imports. Yeah. Now, I imagine that that's perhaps one place to start, trying to look at what is coming into this country, ensure that they meet the proper standards. And I guess that as you do that, you're already tackling the problem. That's your thoughts about what needs to be done on that part. And Muda, let me hear from you first.
The gatekeeper for imports is customs.
Right. Which is under government.
Customs duty is to collect duties.
So can I come in there briefly now?
No,
but can I say something?
Let's hear from her.
So that for our imports, we expect overseas certification under SUNCAP. Now, with a fake product, you cannot be certified from destination country. I mean, from the source country.
So what is happening then?
Absolutely.
So
how
how would I then answer for a product that has not come in under SUNCAP certification that is in the market?
How do we explain
It
that?
goes back.
No,
It goes back.
But it goes back
to the
how-
weakness of
Let's hear her.
institutions.
So customs collects their duty.
Yeah.
Once they've collected duty, that's it.
No, it shouldn't,
no, no,
it shouldn't
no,
be
not
as simple
exa-
as
no,
that.
no, no, no.
Because
There are
the
registration
nicest-
that you have to do.
There is the nicest system that expects
I know.
you to log
It's an
in
obligation.
and fill in the details on your Form M, on your SUNCAP
Yes.
issues, on your NAFDAC, other regulation,
Yeah. Every product that is imported needs to have the SUNCAP certificate.
yes.
Right.
And you wouldn't be able to have your Form M without the SUNCAP certificates
Certificate.
in there.
That's the
But that's one.
infrastructure.
But the point is, all these things are happening, and yet it's so prevalent. We keep talking about it being a global phenomenon. I still want us to come back home here in Nigeria. You talked about pricing, that's one of the attractions.
Incentives,
Why
yeah.
do you think it's prevalent here in this part of the world in an emerging economy? Again, because our purchasing power is very low, so the fake products are lower in price.
Industrial
And
capacity
so
is low.
you're given the reason why there is quite a lot of
Probably.
it here, one of the reasons why there's a lot of it in
Right.
Nigeria. But the point is, in other countries where there are counterfeits, it's usually very closeted. It's hidden. It happens if you want to buy a fake bag or something, you go to a
No.
corner or something. But here in Nigeria, everything is all in the open. It's almost as if, hang on, I can sell it. Nobody is going to
Go to
punish
Turkey.
me for it.
You see,
Go to Turkey,
in every
it's
market.
sold in the open. Go to Hong Kong, it's sold in the open.
every
We know
market.
the place.
Right.
We know
Okay.
the place.
So
It's
if
where
open or
it's
not,
sold.
I think at the end of the day, what we want to see is action is taken to ensure that the people are reprimanded, people are punished,
The problem is
for doing
sociological. It's sociological.
and will be a deterrent in that way.
Crime is sociological.
Consumer education.
Yes.
It's part of the things we need.
Crime can never be eradicated. Never. It can never, as
control.
long as the
Right.
world is, crime will never be eradicated. And as long as counterfeit is a crime, counterfeit will never be eradicated.
But what are the
Our
punitive
aim is to
measures?
bring it down and to utilize government. I'm not a pro-government person, but government has put the laws. We've signed WTO and TRIPS. We've criminalized it.
Right.
If you bring the case to me, for instance, to prosecute, I would pursue it with my power and my might.
But what
in
what
conjunction,
are the punitive
we'll use
measures? What are the
everything.
punitive measures that you get someone, all right, and there's a raid,
There's
and there
a
are
new
many
law
raids
now.
that happen. So what are the punitive measures that would?
You see,
would
my worry about all of this is
That's
the
an unanswered
level-
question.
Is
We'll
the
get to
level
that
of
later.
impunity.
Right.
I mean, just like we talk about corruption, unless there are deterrent sanctions, I mean, even if it is 6 months jail,
Right.
let's sentence 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people
Right.
to jail. I
Right.
mean, that will send the right kind of signals.
All right.
Because it's criminal.
I need to take a break now, and when we come back, we'll talk about how we make it a deterrent. We'll talk about some of the unanswered questions. We've been having a very lively and engaging conversation around counterfeit products in West Africa. We'll come back and continue that conversation right after this break. Welcome back to this edition of Africa Dialogues, brought to you by Philips. On this edition, we are focusing on counterfeit products in West Africa, and we have a very lively panel giving us some perspective from agents of government and, of course, the private sector. And before we move on, let's just get a feel of what we're talking about here. Counterfeit products, we have quite a few on the table right now. And Chima, I'll allow you to talk us through some of what we're seeing here and the challenge that we're facing in Nigeria today.
Thanks. It's a very serious challenge, and this is why we need the support from all the regulatory bodies. But let me just throw this test. Which would you say is counterfeit? Which would you say is original?
All right, I'll allow Muda to go first.
It's difficult for me to
You have to
So
pick
just
one.
Pick
You're in the
one.
market and you have to pick. Which one will you pick?
I pick this.
This is the
All right,
original.
you think that's original? Mena, what do you
There are
think?
hollows somewhere.
Sorry?
You just said that you have hollows on your product.
In the packaging, yeah.
Maybe in the packaging, but perhaps not in the bottle. Okay, quick choice is the one on the...
So which one is which is the
left.
original?
I would
All right.
want to inspect more closely.
You'll
I
need
don't
to
know.
inspect quickly.
Maybe from the injection
Quick choice.
point. Let's see if my eyes would.
Quick choice.
Ideally, this should be the original.
All right, so we have
That's it.
two for the
Yes, for the
clearer
See,
one and the
this
other.
this is the danger, and it's a very serious matter, because indeed this is the original.
Okay.
Yes.
Ah,
The reason why this is the original, because as far as 2008, the FDA had banned a material BPA.
BPA.
And it's been banned in the, in most European, in fact, all European countries, European Union, in Canada, in America. Now, this BPA is a very harmful substance that is in plastic. And that is the substance, that's the material that makes plastic clear.
right.
And this is toxin. And it mixes with the food, with the baby milk. And what your baby will be drinking is this BPA material. Now you
Which is in
see,
the clearer
which
one.
is in the clearer one.
Yeah.
And you can see with the plastic.
Right.
So this is so important.
Right.
And we need to really address it together. I do
That's
understand when you say that the multinationals need to, the brand owners need to work on it, but we can't do it alone.
Right.
We cannot do it alone, and we need the support
Okay.
of the regulatory bodies.
Let's talk a bit about some of the deterrents, and I want to bring Mena in here. Mena, how do we resolve this issue? Earlier you mentioned that the laws are there, so really deterrence should be there. But what's the issue now? Is it enforcement? Is it capacity? Where do you think we're lacking here?
It's a cocktail of problems, and it involves the application of the law, the enforcement, the willingness to take the bull by the horns, and that
process should be driven by who?
By the right owner.
The right owner. Okay, we'll get to that conversation later.
It starts from the right owner. I have to identify that my rights are being infringed, that I have an enforceable intellectual property right. That is a starting point. Then I have to come to the fact that those rights are being infringed. Then I look up to the hills and I call for help from the regulatory bodies who compel them to do their work, to provide support. The legal framework for the enforcement, they're already in place.
All right.
For starters.
All right, but and maybe I can get Muna to comment on this. I do know about the Anti-Counterfeit Collaboration of Nigeria. It's something it's a collaboration between the private sector and several agencies. Is that something that you would say has helped the process at all in terms of trying to make sure that the rights of intellectual property owners are enforced in this country?
Well, I would say that it has been useful because it is very important to drive the process by intelligence.
Yeah.
It's like fighting terrorism. The best way to deal with this kind of thing is through intelligence. So the private sector needs to share intelligence with the regulatory agencies. And the regulatory agencies also need to have the capacity.
Right. Because
the problem is overwhelming. And unless the regulatory agencies are also sufficiently empowered, this problem will overwhelm them. It will overwhelm them.
All right. How do you respond to that?
We have an educative program on NTA, Saturday evenings, Your Product and You. Over the years, what we've tried to do is to get brand owners to come up with ideas on how best to educate consumers. What are you to look for in your products? When we were looking at this, the first thing you look at, this looks clearer, and it's more out of ignorance than anything, because the BPA thing, it's quite toxic. In the same way for pressing iron and other things. So we want to emphasize the need to tell the consumer why they need to look out for what. Right. Because it starts from, snub the substandard products, because typically if it's a fake, it's not likely that they are aiming at satisfying you anyway. Exactly. That's why it's coming out cheaper than the original brand.
I can imagine the value of trying to enlighten the public and all of that. But if we look at what could be perhaps maybe stronger strategic moves, maybe dealing with these things from the source. So where they're coming from, what about the engagement offshore? And Mena, maybe you can share some perspective on this. Engaging offshore, and of course also the rules internationally, how we how we're approaching that?
The counterfeiters are driven by profit. It's criminal. So even in their state of origin, there's no engagement with the government. It's done in the dark.
Yes.
So,
but I do know that, for instance, when agencies like NAFDAC were trying to sort out these issues, there were a lot of trips made to other parts of the world to try and
that
stop
is a standard
the process there.
It's a standard process for any manufacturer of drugs. When you're manufacturing drugs and bringing it to Nigeria, NAFDAC likes to go to where the drug is made to determine that it fits the standard that is required and all that. Now, we are dealing with criminals for counterfeiters, so you cannot even find where they're operating from. The whole idea is to get it into your country one way or the other. So you can't engage them. It finds the way here. The only people you can engage are those people doing the right thing. You can engage Phillips because they're doing the right thing, but you can't engage the person bringing the fake product. You don't even know where he is. If you get him, he will be caught by law. Is it such a big problem? I mean, he just talked about you don't even know where they are. Is it that abstract, the problem?
My own perspective of this is that it is better to deal with this matter from the source. I think that is a better approach. Because this idea of consumer education and all of that, if you are not careful, you could have a backlash. Because if you come on air and you are saying this is original, some people may say, oh, please, come out of this product.
So
You could create a problem. So the most effective, I'm going back to it, strong intelligence and strong capacity and deterrent sanctions. If there are ways in which we can fast-track the processes to ensure that those who are involved in this matter are dealt with very quickly, it will help a great deal.
In the time past, for things like toothbrushes, we've had companies engage international lawyers, track under covert activities to trace to source where is this thing coming from. That's how far something as simple as toothbrush, I can recall that readily now. So if we're talking about consumer engagement, you're giving me information, for example, on your accredited distributor outlets.
Yeah.
How does that's in the interest of the business owner.
I think what I hear you saying is that...
Because whatever, we can have 50 agencies and empower them to the highest level possible. They cannot go outside of Nigeria to look for where the person targeting your market is coming from. So if I'm a dealer in just pressing iron, like Barrister explained, the onus is on me to watch if I'm having an upsurge more than what if I bring in a container in a month and what is in the market. For soaps, you'll be surprised the volume and the sort of tracking some companies have done, even to measure the presence of their various brands. There are brands they have discontinued maybe in the past 2 years that are coming into the market. But if they don't give us that information to follow the lead and at least mop it off in the market, but you mop up, give them 3 months.
Well, if someone here can explain this to me, I mean, you just used the example of soap. So one container is authentic and maybe 3 containers are fake. Those 3 containers that are landing here that are fake, can't we identify them and can't we stop them from getting out of the
port? So will the government on its own decide that you have 3 containers coming in without being prompted by the right owner? So it comes back to that responsibility on the owner of to trigger it. You have to trigger it and utilize the infrastructure that is made available.
But if I might add to that, again, I do understand the necessity and the importance of the brands, having ownership to drive it. It's of course it is. But in this question that he asked, I mean, how will the brand know that containers of fake products are coming in? The question, or what we would like to see in the collaboration, is for it not to even It will stop at the ports. And this is why we go out of the way and we pay for all the products, the genuine products, having the SunCap certificate. So clearly, if a product coming in that does not have that certificate, then there should be questions, you know, asked. Why is this not coming?
She wants to respond to that.
Okay. As far back as November 2011, Sun has not physically been checking imports. For some months now, under the trade portal, the custom NICES, you are expected to make input of the documents you have on your imports. And agencies of government are hooked onto this portal to view. I think early this year, we can say that Sun presence is now getting more visible on the portal. We can see how many containers are coming in of what. If we do not have information about your pressing iron, you're bringing in 4 containers in a month, there's no way that alert will come from customs or from Sun to say, oh, if the brand owner is expecting 4, we are seeing 40.
Right.
So it still comes to this collaboration.
Absolutely.
Because as long as we are passing the buck and pointing fingers, we'll keep discussing this issue till forever.
No, but I think the whole essence is on collaboration. I mean, we know as brand owners, we have to make sure that we're driving, and that's why at Philips we've started the Buy, you know, Original campaign, and we are making sure consumer awareness is actually also very important because of the dangers. Right. I mean, we have to be responsible citizens, individually, responsible corporate citizens, responsible regulatory bodies, because we are not going to cross our hands and watch people buy, you know, a fake product that could, you know, invariably cause a lot of harm.
You know, I explained to you, we put
so
much resource.
But we're already working with
you
Sun.
used the word being responsible corporate, regulatory bodies. The much that Sun is doing at the moment is even beyond what we ought to be doing ordinarily if the economy were at a better level than it is now. Trying to do your products and you, tell me, how many products can we possibly... So we are saying that the time is now for major brands to come up. We work with the anti-counterfeiting collaboration regularly. We've been regular on their meetings for over 5 years. And for those brands that recognize that they need the support, they need to work with SON. You also mentioned it earlier, that our team have worked with you variously in the past. So we're open to working with you. But to come here and promise you that for maybe 500,000 products in the market, Sun will be everywhere recognizing which is fake and which would be a tough.
No, I don't think that's what
unrealistic to build that capacity.
You see, I come back to the point. Are continually being built to support brand owners that identify threats to their brands in the market. We are there to give you that support. We're never shaking or relenting in that responsibility.
You see, as an advocacy body, we have a responsibility to also bring it to the attention of government. That some institutions of government are critical to the creation of an enabling environment for business. And SON is one of them. SON also has its limitations.
So you think
we need
you're
to
making a call to the government?
Yes. We need to strengthen these institutions. We need to strengthen the customs. And we also need to deal with the issues of the criminal justice system.
The criminal justice administration, it's not a responsibility for, there's a constitutional right to the courts. So once there's a matter, there's a plaintiff, there's a defendant, there's a state, and so whenever you bring your application, the other person is entitled to respond. And through a combination of that, there's always a delay. Matters are not heard expeditiously as they ought to be. On that, I would agree. But whether there's access to justice, it's there.
In terms of the deterrent here, one law, I've just used this as an example, that I know is in the National Assembly, is the Counterfeit Medical Product, Fake Drugs and Unwholesome Processed Foods Prohibition and Control Bill. So it's a mouthful, but the important thing though is that that bill is asking that people have a life imprisonment sentence attached to offenses around this. And unfortunately, that law has been stuck in Parliament for a while. So I guess this is another weakness of the process, right?
Yes, yes. As with most other laws,
right?
You have the intellectual property bill that's been there for 20 years.
Wow.
It's not given priority because it's just one of those bills. So that you can't, I don't know who to blame. You blame the system.
Barrister, can we put this back on the need to sensitize, do massive sensitization on brand protection?
Yes.
Because if the lawmakers are well educated on the import, the implication of these products on the economy, our environment, job creation, so many ramifications, you know.
Let me just say a word. Malcolm X said, it's the wheel that squeaks that gets the grease. So if you squeak loud enough, you'll get the grease. Perhaps the brand owners should squeak some more. Put pressure. It's a pressure group thing. If you shout from the rooftop, you'll be given attention.
Have we seen any success stories from this approach and from your experience? We know that you've been engaging quite a bit in this area. You know,
it depends on what stake you have, whatever you have at stake. If what you have at stake is very high, you would do what has to be done. I recall you do what have to, you push, you support, you drive it through. But because you're still making your profit anyway, it's just a part of it that is being taken, and what you have, you're breaking even, you're doing your own. So are you suggesting that the private sector can collaborate a little more on this point? Yes, seriously. Put the pressure on they should shout louder. We have the private sector here to comment on that.
This is our job.
Yes, that's it.
We're in the business of advocacy. Yeah. We also expect companies like this that are suffering this kind of problem, this kind of challenge, to come on board and bring these issues to our attention. It's not easy for companies individually to tackle this kind of problem. Yeah. You need a platform to be able to do that, and that is very important.
The anti-counterfeiting collaboration is a strong platform. Yes. They've been regular. I'm sure they're having a meeting tomorrow somewhere, wherever. Yes. We have a team that attends meeting with them. I think we really need to put some synergy into it. What is the success story about drugs? In the first instance, we all know that it's an alimentarious thing. It goes into your throat and could be this way or that way. So for that reason, everybody rose to. But you're talking of products that may not necessarily be life danger products, but that are draining the economy massively.
Right. I think I like the example of drugs here. Is that a success story? Because it seems like there was a huge focus.
Largely, it's a success story. Of course, the recent raid that was conducted right under our noses. Apart from that, there's been a massive improvement, reduction, but it's still intractable. The Indians are still on it. The Chinese are still on it, and even you can't really handle it because it's criminal. You can only reduce it, and that is what.
But I have a concern, if I may. Sure. You know, from a private sector perspective, I mean, everything that you have said that the private sector should do, I mean, has been done, and so the question now is, what kind of support, you know, will some of the regulatory bodies now do after you have done everything that has been asked? In other words, how is it that, you know, we can collaborate? What are the steps that can be taken? What are the deterrent factors? I keep asking about that. What are the things that can be done? Because there's no point, we can have a lot of conversations about this.
Did you say everything has been done?
No, I said what can be done. I'm not saying nothing has been done, but what more can be done? What would I see as a stakeholder? If we're collaborating already, but what can we see? Take, for example, I know that we've collaborated with Sun, and there has been, you know, raids because, hey, it is a criminal offense, and so the police and some other third-party agencies and regulatory bodies from time to time go and do raids. But after the raids, What next?
Did you put
know?
information in the public place, in the public space, on what to watch out for?
Absolutely.
For the consumers?
Absolutely. All that has been done. Okay. So what I'm now asking, just the same way, I had a major experience, with baby food. My son, almost gave him fake SMA gold. But I just listened to my intuition. I mean, there was no difference between that one and the original. But something kept telling me, don't give it to him. And I called NAFDAC and I sent it to them. And in less than 48 hours, they came back after I had taken it to the lab and said the microbiotic content in that milk would have killed my child. So, and after that, they went on you could see results immediately. You could see the action that was taken. And as you've just said, there has been a success story with the drugs.
I think now you made an interesting point.
Yes, now I'm asking what kind of success story NAFDAC can say, okay, this is what we have done. I would like to know what kind of success story, after we've done all this, after we have collaborated and we are still collaborating, what can we expect now to see?
What we expect to see? You're looking at the sun angle now.
Not just the sun, other regulatory bodies.
I'm taking it from the Standards Organization of Nigeria angle, and the fact remains that you need a systematic flow of information into the public domain.
I think the innovation you have with the SMS is quite an interesting one. It really speaks to the point about how you get to engage the consumer, because I think they could be part of this solution. The feedback from consumers, I mean, the experience that you had, for instance, is something that could trigger a raid, if you like. So opening up the channels of communication with the consumer, isn't that part of the strategy?
It is part of it. But how many consumers will take the trouble to check this? I think we are looking at the population of 170 million people. We are looking at a situation where you have so much poverty. People are looking at what they can afford before they even talk of quality. You see? So, you see, I still come back to the issue of consequences.
Right.
Yeah.
If people behave in a bad way and there are no consequences, that behavior will continue.
Right. And I think part of that solution is...
Seizures have been made. People have been arrested. How many people have gone to jail?
With our new
I think that is where to start from.
I think
he's
looking for that deterrent.
I need to make a point here.
But you didn't actually answer my question.
I'm going to get to that. With the updated Act of SON, there are two issues now. Number one, the product is fake. Number two, of course, it will be substandard. Under the substandard issue, I would say the coast is clear for thorough punishment now, because we can go the full hog in, prosecuting now.
All right, so we look forward to that, the impact of that change. We need to begin to wrap up. She still has a question that she wants you to address.
No, I did ask, if we do everything that we're supposed to do as a brand, but you answered what we should still do, and I'm saying, we have done all that. We have our authorized distribution channel. We have communicated to the consumers. We're collaborating with SAN. What can we expect?
That collaboration
from the regulatory
will make you expect on a regular basis mop-up. Even if the product is being reined into Nigeria, there will be regular mop-up.
Mop-ups,
regular mop-up.
Right.
I assure you,
as
our
we begin
team
to close, you have a point to make?
Okay, and the issue of monitoring for anti-counterfeit should not be seen as a journey with a destination. It's a continuous thing.
So this is something that will be with us forever, if you like.
Yes, as long as your business exists, you continue to monitor, you continue to enforce. So there's nothing like having done all that has to be done. No. Having done all that has to be done, you keep on doing.
No, absolutely, of course.
So there's no destination. You keep enforcing, you engage people, and you keep on doing it.
If I can get the final word from everyone, and I will start with Muda.
Yes.
Very briefly.
Investors are not in the business of monitoring. Monitoring is secondary. They are here to do business in accordance with the rules of the country. The government has a responsibility to ensure an enabling environment, a level playing field for all investors.
Right.
So we have to hold government largely accountable.
Right.
If there are institutions that need to be strengthened, let us advocate for government to strengthen those institutions.
All right.
Because you can't go through the process of either production, getting generator, getting diesel, worrying about, then you now begin to worry again about counterfeiters. You know, you invest so much money. It's a major distraction, and we should get government to play its role.
All right.
As an enabler.
We really have to round it up here.
It's very important.
And I have less than a minute. Chioma, if you can, very quickly, final words, if you have.
Well, Philips primarily looks after the well-being, you know, of its customers. And so fighting, and this is a big fight, fighting this anti-fake campaign is so important to us. Yeah. And so the Buy Original campaign is started already. We're asking the consumers, look out for the holographic security stickers, and then for the light bulbs, look out for the SMS code on all the light bulbs. Right. It is so important to our consumers.
Mena, I'll give you the final word, but Mena?
For the right owners, they have a responsibility to follow their product and to monitor how their product gets into the market. It's their responsibility to monitor their right, because if you sleep on your right, nobody will enforce it for you.
All right. And you?
Standards Organization of Nigeria is committed to ensuring that quality of life of Nigerians are improved through standards. We're looking forward to working with every stakeholder. As people rise up to the challenge, we'll be there to cover your back. That much I can assure you.
All right.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. It's definitely been a very engaging session. I have been speaking to Oluremi Ayeni, a director at the Standard Organization of Nigeria. Mena Ajakwovi, he is a lawyer and partner at Abraham & Co. Muda Yusuf is the Director General of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industries. And last but not least, Chioma Iwuchukwu Nweke, General Manager, Personal Health at Philips West Africa. Thank you so much to my panel for joining us, and thank you very much for watching.